I won $3 million in the lottery, and my parents said, "Will you give half to your brother, or are you out of this house?" I refused. The next day, before leaving, I found them tearing up my lottery ticket out of envy, but I laughed hysterically because that ticket was. My name is Peter, and as far back as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my brother Nicolas. It's not something I like to admit, but it's the truth. My parents, Andrea and Mauricio, have always had a favorite, and that favorite has never been me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not looking for pity. I just want to tell my story because what happened to me recently changed everything, and I need to get it off my chest. I grew up in a modest home in a quiet neighborhood. We were a middle-class family with a roof over our heads and food on the table, but there was always a clear difference in how my parents treated Nicolas and me. From a young age, Nicolas was the golden child, the one who always got the praise. If he got a good grade, my mother would hang his report card on the fridge like it was a work of art. If I got an equal or better grade, I'd get a curt "good job" and a quick change of subject. If Nicolas wanted a new toy, my parents would bend over backward to get it for him. If I asked for something, they'd say there was no budget or that I needed to earn it myself. It wasn't just about material things. The favoritism toward Nicolas was evident in everything. When it came time to think about college, my parents didn't hesitate to pay for Nicolas's tuition at a top private university. "It's an investment in his future," my dad, Mauricio, would say while my mom, Andrea, beamed with pride. Nicolas wanted to study business administration, and my parents saw him as the next big entrepreneur in the family. Me, I had to scrape by on my own. I wanted to study engineering, but when I asked for help, they looked at me like I'd asked for the moon. "We can't afford it, Peter. You need to find a scholarship," my mom said in a tone that left no room for argument. So I worked. During the day, I waited tables at a restaurant, and at night, I studied like crazy to keep my grades up and hold on to the partial scholarship I managed to get. Even then, it wasn't enough. I ended up taking out student loans that left me with a debt that still weighs on me years later. Meanwhile, Nicolas lived worry-free, with his expenses covered and plenty of time to hang out with friends or travel during vacations. I barely had time to sleep. I don't want to sound like I've always been resentful, but it's hard not to feel a knot in your stomach when you see your own parents treat you like you're less. I tried talking to them a couple of times, asking why there was such a difference. "It's not that we love you less, Peter," my mom would say. "It's just that Nicolas needs more support. You're strong, you can manage on your own." But those words, instead of comforting me, made me feel even more alone. Why did I have to be the strong one? Why couldn't I get the same love, the same support? Despite everything, I pushed forward. I graduated with good grades in engineering, though I was saddled with debt that would haunt me for years. I landed a decent job as a junior engineer at a construction company, but my salary barely covered my loan payments, the rent my parents charged me to live at home, and my basic expenses. Yes, I was still living with them, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't afford my own place. My parents charged me rent, something Nicolas never had to pay. "You're working, Peter. It's only fair you contribute," they said. Meanwhile, Nicolas, who had already graduated, lived at home rent-free. Then came the moment when Nicolas decided to start his own business. He wanted to open an urban clothing store, something trendy and cool, according to him. My parents didn't hesitate to support him. They took out all their savings, the same savings that supposedly didn't exist when I asked for help with college, and gave them to Nicolas to rent a space, buy inventory, and hire staff. "It's a great opportunity for him," my dad said. "Nicolas has vision. He's going to go far." I watched in silence, wondering how they could be so blind. Nicolas had no experience, hadn't made a solid business plan, and his idea seemed more like a whim than a serious project. A year earlier, I had tried to start my own venture, a small engineering consulting firm that could grow over time. I asked my parents for a small loan, no more than what they spent in a month on Nicolas's outings. Their response was a flat no. "We don't see a future in it, Peter," my mom said. "It sounds too risky. Stick with your job." It hurt, not just the rejection, but the fact that they didn't even bother to hear my plan. To them, my dreams weren't worth the effort. Meanwhile, I had a habit that, I admit, wasn't the most sensible. I bought lottery tickets. It started as a silly thing, a way to dream of something better. Every week, I spent a few bucks on a ticket, imagining that maybe, just maybe, luck would smile on me. It was my little escape, my way of holding on to hope that one day I could get out of the hole I was in. My parents and Nicolas mocked me for it. "You're throwing your money away, Peter," Nicolas would say with a smirk. "The lottery is for losers." I didn't respond. I just kept my tickets in a drawer and went on with my life. Months passed and Nicolas's business started to falter. I wasn't surprised. I'd seen how he ran things, spending more than he earned, hearing friends who knew nothing about business, and making impulsive decisions. Soon, the debts piled up, and my parents, who had invested everything in him, started to worry. Meanwhile, I kept working, paying off my student loans and the rent at home, with no one ever asking how I was doing or if I needed anything. Then one day, everything changed. It was a Friday night. As usual, I stopped by the corner store and bought a lottery ticket. I didn't have high hopes, but I liked checking the numbers, imagining that maybe, just once, life would give me a break. That night, sitting in my room, I turned on the TV and watched the live drawing. The numbers started coming up one by one and something inside me froze. 7, 14, 23, 42, the same numbers on my ticket. At first, I thought I was dreaming. I checked the ticket over and over, carefully comparing each number. There was no mistake. I had won $3 million. I didn't scream, didn't jump, didn't do anything. I just sat on my bed, staring at the ticket, feeling a mix of disbelief and euphoria. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control, but I also knew I couldn't tell anyone, not yet. My parents and Nicolas weren't trustworthy, and I didn't want them to know until the money was safely in my account. The next day, I went to the lottery office to validate my ticket. It was real. The staff congratulated me, explained that the payment would take 15 to 30 days to hit my bank account, and gave me a giant symbolic check, the kind they use for photos. It was huge, with my name and the amount of $3 million written in big letters. We did a photo session, I smiled for the cameras, and I went home with the check under my arm, still processing what was happening. When I got home, my parents and Nicolas were in the living room. When they saw me with the giant check, their eyes widened. "What's that, Peter?" my mom asked, a mix of curiosity and suspicion in her voice. I took a second before answering, knowing what I said would change everything. "I won the lottery," I said, trying to stay calm. $3 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Nicolas let out a nervous laugh. "You, seriously, Peter?" My parents didn't laugh. They looked at me like I'd just confessed to a crime. "It's true," I said, holding up the symbolic check, and then all hell broke loose. My mom spoke first. "Peter, this is a blessing for the family. You have to share it with us. Nicolas needs that money. His business is in trouble. He has debts to pay. If you give him half, he can save it and get ahead." I stared at her, incredulous. Half, after everything they'd done, or rather, hadn't done for me. Nicolas nodded as if it were the most logical thing in the world. "Yeah, Peter, it's only fair. We're family. You can't keep all that to yourself." I felt a laugh rising in my throat, but I held it back. "Fair," I said, looking at all three of them. "Since when do you care about fair? You never supported me in anything. You didn't pay for my college, left me drowning in debt. You didn't give me a dime for my business idea, but you gave Nicolas everything he asked for. And now that I've won something on my own, you want half. No, I'm not giving you anything." The atmosphere grew tense. My dad, who had been silent until then, stepped forward. "Peter, don't be selfish. If you don't give half to your brother, you're out of this house. We don't want ungrateful people here." I don't know where I found the calm, but I found it. "Fine," I said. "I'm leaving, and don't worry, I won't be speaking to you again. You never supported me, never believed in me. Now that I have something, suddenly I'm part of the family. No thanks." The argument that followed was a whirlwind. I laid into them about everything. How they paid for Nicolas's college while I worked endless shifts. How they gave him all their savings for a business that was now failing. How they charged me rent while Nicolas lived for free. "It's always been him, hasn't it?" I shouted. "Always Nicolas, the important one, the one worth betting on. I was just the one who had to be strong, who had to figure it out on my own. Well, I did, and I'm not sharing with you." My mom tried to interrupt, saying I was exaggerating, that they only wanted the best for everyone. Nicolas, for his part, called me jealous, said I'd always been envious of him. I didn't respond. It wasn't worth it. I went to my room, left the symbolic check on my desk, and locked myself in to plan my exit. I wasn't staying in that house another day. I woke up early, determined to start looking for a place. Before heading downstairs, I noticed the check wasn't on my desk. I went down to the living room and stopped dead in my tracks. There were my parents and Nicolas sitting around the dining table with the symbolic check in the center. It wasn't whole, it was destroyed. Pieces of cardboard were scattered across the table, some torn into strips, others crumpled. My mom was holding a piece in her hand, and Nicolas had a pair of scissors. My dad, with a stern expression, looked at me as if daring me to react. For a second, I felt a pang of panic. What had they done? My parents and Nicolas looked at me and said, "We warned you, Peter. Since you wouldn't share, we decided to tear up your check. Now you've got nothing. What are you going to do without your little money?" "Out of envy," Nicolas added, brandishing the scissors like a trophy. And then I don't know how, a laugh started bubbling up in my chest. I tried to hold it in, but I couldn't. I burst into laughter, so hard I could barely breathe. My parents and Nicolas looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "What are you laughing at?" my dad growled, clearly annoyed. "You think this is funny." My laughter grew louder. I couldn't stop. Tears streamed down my face, and I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. Nicolas's face went from arrogance to confusion, and my parents exchanged glances, clearly not understanding what was happening. "Why are you laughing?" my mom shouted, throwing the piece of cardboard she was holding. "We just destroyed your prize. Don't you get it? You're not getting anything." I wiped my tears and tried to calm down, though my body was still shaking with laughter. "That check," I said, pointing at the pieces on the table, "that check is worthless. It's a symbolic check, a piece of cardboard they gave me for photos. The real money is being processed and will be in my account in less than 15 days. You really thought you could ruin me by tearing up a piece of paper." The silence that followed was glorious. The three of them went pale, as if the blood had drained from their bodies. Nicolas dropped the scissors, and my dad opened his mouth, but no words came out. My mom was the first to react, though her voice trembled. "Peter, that was a joke. We didn't mean it. We just wanted to teach you a lesson." "A lesson?" I said, taking a step toward them. "What kind of lesson? That I've never meant anything to you? That all that matters is Nicolas and his useless business?" "No, Mom, that wasn't a joke. That was pure venom, pure spite. But you know what? I don't care. I'm leaving this house, and I'm not looking back." Nicolas jumped up from his chair, his expression a mix of panic and desperation. "Peter, wait, don't take it like that. We're family. You know my business is in trouble. If you give me some of that money, I can save it. Don't be selfish, man." "Selfish?" I snapped, feeling the rage burn inside me. "Selfish me. After you left me alone with my college debts, after you charged me rent to live in this house while you lived for free, after Mom and Dad gave you everything you asked for and gave me crumbs. No, Nicolas, I don't owe you anything. Not you, not them." My dad tried to step in, using that authoritative tone he always used to impose his will. "Peter, calm down. We're your parents and Nicolas is your brother. You can't turn your back on your family. That money is a blessing and you have to share it." "It's not a blessing for you," I cut him off. "It's my blessing. I bought that lottery ticket. I won it. You mocked me for buying tickets, remember? You said I was a loser, that I was throwing my money away. Well, look who's laughing now." I didn't give them a chance to respond. I went to my room, grabbed my backpack, and started packing the essentials: clothes, my laptop, some important documents. I didn't need much. I'd lived with the bare minimum my whole life, so it wasn't hard to decide what to take. As I packed, I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was my mom, her eyes red like she was about to cry. "Peter, please," she said, barging into my room without asking. "Don't do this. We're your family. You can't just leave like this. Let's talk. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I replied without looking at her. "You made it clear who you are. It's always been Nicolas, always. When I needed help with college, you turned your back on me. When I wanted to start a business, you said it wasn't worth it. But now that I have money, suddenly I'm important. No, Mom, it's over." I walked out of the room, down the stairs, and past the living room without glancing at Nicolas or my dad. I heard my mom shouting from upstairs, calling me ungrateful, saying I couldn't treat them like that. Nicolas yelled something too, but I didn't stop to listen. I opened the front door and stepped outside, feeling the fresh air on my face. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. The days passed, and waiting for the lottery money felt like an eternity. Every morning, I checked my bank account, hoping to see the deposit. In the meantime, I settled into my new home. I bought a mattress, a small table, and some basic things. I didn't need more. For the first time, I felt like I had a space that was mine, where no one could tell me what to do or how to live. Then one day, an email from the lottery arrived, confirming that the deposit had been processed. I checked my account, and there it was, a number with more zeros than I'd ever seen. I stared at the screen, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. I had done it. I was free. The first thing I did was pay off my student loans. Seeing that balance hit zero was like lifting a mountain off my shoulders. Then I bought a few things I'd always wanted: a nice TV, a comfortable sofa, a new laptop. Nothing extravagant, just things that made life easier. I didn't want to draw attention. I didn't want anyone to know I was a millionaire. I'd heard stories of lottery winners who lost everything by spending recklessly, and I wasn't going to be one of them. But my parents and Nicolas didn't give up. A few days after I moved out, I got a call from my mom. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. "Peter, please, we need to talk. Nicolas's business is about to close. If we don't get money, it's going to fail. You have the means to help him. Don't turn your back on us." I listened to the message and deleted it. Then came a text from Nicolas. "Brother, don't be like this. I know you're upset, but I'm your family. Help me. I'm begging you." I ignored that too. A week later, my dad called. This time I answered, more out of curiosity than a desire to talk. "Peter," he said, trying to sound conciliatory, "I know things got out of hand, but you can't leave your brother out in the cold. His business is all he has. If you don't help him, he's going to lose everything." "And what about me, Dad?" I replied. "What about everything I lost because of you? The years I worked myself to exhaustion, the times you humiliated me made me feel less." "No, Dad. Nicolas had his chance, and he blew it. Now it's his turn to face the consequences." "You're ungrateful," he shouted before hanging up. Didn't surprise me. It was the same old story. If I didn't do what they wanted, I was the bad guy. But this time I didn't care. I was done seeking their approval. I decided to cut contact with them. I blocked their numbers and deleted their messages. It wasn't easy. Part of me still felt the weight of the guilt they tried to put on me, but I remembered their words, their actions, and I knew I was doing the right thing. I didn't owe them anything. Today I walk through my apartment, look out the window, and feel something new: freedom. It's not just the money, it's knowing I don't need their approval, that I'm enough. The anger I felt has turned into peace. They bet on Nicolas and lost. I bet on myself and won. There's no going back. Subscribe for more daily stories.